So I decided to cut off that old apex. So we are actually looking at the old front of this tree. And I wasn't going to turn it into gin, but it just wasn't thrilling me. But Cypress are interesting trees because typically when you make a cut like this, you want to try to make it concave. You want to cut out the middle so that you don't get reverse taper. You don't get a big bulge there. But with Cypress, people have found that if you do exactly the opposite, so if you take a knife like this and cut the edge like this, all the way around, and you create the scar so that it's more rounded. So instead of being flat like this, it's more rounded like that. That will keep the vellum that develops, that the tree is going to try to heal this scar with, from creating reverse taper. Now I have a branch right here which is going to be tricky because I think I want that branch. So all the way around. And this is also a brand new blade in here. I cut the apex with a coping saw, and the blade was so dull. It went about 1/4 of an inch in, and then it was just like, there's no way. So I had to go buy a whole brand new blade. And so I decided to buy a set of new blades for my safety knife too. So people have found that this is the best way to keep bald cypress from creating reverse taper, is to create a rounded scar. And I can probably work on this some more off camera, but you get the idea. So now the next step is repotting. And right now I've got it really low. I shortened my tripod, so I need to bring the tree up to the bench, bring the tripod up, and then start with the actual repotting and repositioning of the tree for the new front. This is still the old front, and it has some weeds, and I should be able to get rid of most of the weeds in the repotting process. I also have two very interesting quote-unquote weeds, which you've seen in some other videos, and so you probably already know what they are. There's one, and then this is a tiny little baby laurel oak seedlings. Oops, don't kick the tripod. So I've been sticking my laurel oak seedlings into water. I don't know if I'll ever actually plant them. I've got some. They're all very young. So now if you can see, there is some old wire here that was used to tie this tree into the pot. And so I probably need to address that. Get that wire out of there. So pull it all out of there. There we go. Okay, so there's the wire that was anchoring the tree. And it's old, but I think it's probably still usable. Now the next thing is to see what we're up against as far as, will this tree come out of the pot? Oh yeah, and it looks like it's going to come out of the pot. No problem. There you go. That was pretty simple. I'm going to use the same pot, and it's just a little bit dirty. So just a little cleaning. And it appears as though the tree came up with the mesh that covers the drain holes. Both of them, actually. So temporarily I'm just going to put the pot to the side. And let's inspect the roots. Oh, it's just beautiful, beautiful, healthy roots. And like I said in the other video, the first part of this video, I water this thing every single day once it begins to grow. I watered it today too, but not too much. So now this is going to be my new front. So this part of the roots will probably be okay, but I really need to work on this back part to get the tree back in the pot in this position, because I want the knees. And I'm going to leave this little fern too. Try to get rid of most of the rest of the weeds. And very interestingly, I have the feeling that this plant, this tree, was grown in a 3-gallon pot for a long time. Because if we look at a 3-gallon pot and the knees, you can see that they're almost in exactly the same shape as a 3-gallon pot, which is why I think they've got this strange curve going. So this tree was in a pot like this for probably quite a few years. So the knees are interesting, there's no question about that. So then the next step is to get my root hook and begin to feather out all the roots in anticipation of cutting some off and also removing enough of the roots to reposition the tree back in the same pot, but with this as the front. So I'm going to grab my root hook and begin to just pull the roots away. And this tree is in some very interesting soil. It's got bonsai components, but it also looks very sandy right in here. This is just all sand. So I'm not quite sure why it's like that. Because this tree is going in the very same pot, I will not really need to do much pruning on the bottom. Just a little bit. And this is the time of year for me to do this. Even though it's the middle of January, here they break dormancy very quickly in about the middle of February. And if you root prune a bald cypress after it's broken dormancy and the sap is beginning to flow, it can die. This needs to be done before the sap begins to flow, so that when the sap does begin to flow, the new growth can add energy to the new roots that are going to move through the new soil. Try to get rid of most of the weeds. Except for that one fern. I think that one little fern is kind of cool. So now this tree had some major root pruning done. And this is an interesting little piece here. If we see, this is almost like an aerial root just sticking out, but then it produced a root, and then it became very thick. And this one is also, this is the original front. I don't like the way that hollowed out like that. Of course, that will all now be in the back. So we really won't have to worry about that. A very interesting mix. So it's sort of a mix of, it's got the gravel, but then there's a lot of sand in there too. I'm going to use 100% bonsai soil, even though you could certainly put this guy into 100% organic, the organic soil mix that I use. there's the front. I don't really want to whack off really heavy duty roots, just trying basically to change the shape of the root ball so it'll fit back in the pot with this as the front. There's a pretty heavy root in there somewhere. There it is. And many times you may think, if you're a beginner, that doing this root pruning is what stunts the trees, or not stunts them, but makes them dwarf. And that's exactly the opposite. A root pruning like this actually stimulates growth. There's the old cover to the drain holes. I think I'll just leave that there. The tree's not going to care. Okay. So I think we're good. I think we're good. That looks pretty good. So now let's throw the tree over here. Get rid of all this old soil. And like I said, I save all this old bonsai soil. These red rock, which is probably lava rock, although it's certainly different than the lava rock I use. Like I said, I attained this tree from my friend who was liquidating her collection. All that stuff is just inert. All you need to do is just re-sift it through your sifters, and you can reuse that inert soil. Okay, so if I'm not mistaken, this was the front. And this pot has these little decorative doolies. This looks like bamboo, and then there's some kanji characters here, and then this looks like maybe, what would you think, cherry blossoms, some kind of little flowers, which I think it was the back, but I'm going to make that the front. I don't know why, but I'm going to. And where did I put it? Here I put it. I'm just going to use window screen for the holes. With bald cypress, it's really not that big of a deal. If the window screen doesn't drain that well, the bald cypress doesn't care, because bald cypress love it wet anyway. And in fact, many people grow bald cypress standing in water, even in the bonsai pot. So here we go. Still, I was going to say still has some time to go, but yeah, I think it still needs a little tiny bit off this back part. Just a little tiny bit. And many times the repositioning of a tree like this doesn't have to be done all in one fell swoop. You can do it in stages. So if this is not perfectly positioned where I want it, you know, in the end, that's okay. You can always do it again. You know, let the roots move into the pot and just do it again. Okay, much better. Much better. Okay, so there's the tree with this new front. And the little fern, I love this little fern. This is actually a wild break fern, it's called. And it will get huge, but what will happen is as the fronds begin to elongate, I'll just chop it way back so that it's only just has the tiny brand new growth, and I won't let it get gigantic. So there, I think that's going to be a killer front now that we've got the knees accentuated. And the next step is to add soil. So I've got my handy dandy bucket of bonsai soil, and this soil is a little fine, but I think it will be fine too. Oh, and it's wetter than I thought. Oh no. Because I really like to have my soil dry, bone dry. Then you wet it. So now what am I going to do? I have another container where it's not as wet. But of course I have to go get it. I didn't even realize this stuff was still wet. And I think I will use a chopstick this time instead of my fingers. So I'm going to go back and get the other container of soil. Alright. This soil is a little bit different character, so that's going to be interesting. Let's get some of this wet stuff out of there. And I have, it's not a chopstick, I don't even know what it is, but it'll work. Because I really didn't prune the bottom roots, there shouldn't be all that much airspace underneath the root ball, because it's basically the same height that it was, because I didn't prune the bottom roots to make the root ball shallower. I'll come over here. I think after over 10 years, my hospital trays that I acquired a huge number of, because my father was very sick before he died, in and out of the hospital. Oh my God, I don't even want to talk about it. But every time you go to the hospital, they give you one of these little trays. Well, they don't give it to you, that's for sure. But you know what I mean. They do work quite well to hold various things. And I normally don't make a mound with brand new fresh soil, because it's just going to all wash away if there's any kind of heavy rain, or if you hit it with the hose. And I water everything with a hose. My hand on the nozzle, pull the trigger and water. I water my entire collection every single day. Well, not every day, but every time I do water, I use a hose. I don't have any timed watering system. I truly believe that a timed watering system divorces you from the daily interaction with your trees. And man, if you're not taking care of your trees on a daily basis, you know, looking at them, even just to see that they're doing okay, I know for me, I'm in trouble. I had a couple little mame trees that just one day of being dry, and they didn't die, but oh man, they're looking pretty sad. All right, there we go. And we're already coming up on 20 minutes just to do the repotting. So I think I'm going to end this here as part one, and then begin part two as the wiring. So if I can pull this off without making it look like we're in an earthquake. What I now want to do, we now have the apex. It's almost perfectly straight. And I also cut it here. There's a little reverse taper right there. So that's a little unfortunate, but I think I can solve that. And then I want to take every branch. And right now you may say, man, it sure looks dry, sure looks droopy. These are just leaves that are falling off, going dormant. You can see the brown. And, you know, if it was anywhere else in the country, in the world, that was much colder, this tree would have no leaves on at all. But because I'm in zone 10, even though it's dormant, quote unquote, all my bald cypress still have a bunch of leaves. So now I'm going to take every single branch like this and wire them so they're all moving in the same direction on both sides. So right now it kind of looks a little disheveled. The wiring process could take at least half an hour, maybe even longer than that. And there are some places where it's missing some limbs, where I would really like this limb to be further out, but I can trick the eyeball by bringing this one out there. So that's going to be a pretty involved process. So this is the end of part 1. Bald cypress, formal upright, juvenile style. And the only thing really left to do is to wire it. So thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please give me a big thumbs up, subscribe and hit the notification bell, and you can continue to watch the sky as it develops. And I also did another video on this, at least maybe 2 others, and I'll leave links to those videos, and you can see just how deeply I took this back, basically to almost nothing. And this is all growth in just 1 year. And once it's wired into place, I think it's just going to look awesome. And then this year's growth, it will probably only take another year or 2, and it could really be a beautiful tree. So that's in part 2, the wiring. So thank you so much. Please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and leave a comment if you'd like. And I will see you in the next video.